As my grandmother used to say, see me and come live with me at two different sitting. Welcome to Learning as I Grow 365, a storytelling adventure. Today I am going to talk about evolving perspectives. So I've been involved in a lot of work more recently that is, talking about trauma informed perspectives in terms of how we work with people, how we understand people, and how they experience the world. And I think an important thing to pull from that is how we frame what is trauma from a sort of person-centered perspective, where we think about trauma as that response process that to an experience, which is why different people can be exposed to the same potentially traumatic event and have a different response. And so the response can be positive or negative. So it is that impact of that experience or event on the person that produces that trauma response. And I was thinking about many things about how relationships are constructed. And I was just reflecting on my own evolution. So growing up, there were clearly defined roles for men and women in a relationship. And so men, they're supposed to be physically strong, economically capable, while women, emotionally tough and nurturing. And when it comes to emotion, well, men, they simply were not emotional beings as far as sort of the construction of the masculine identity when I was growing up. But I was raised by a woman who, being strong and independent, was the hallmark of how she portrayed herself despite having her life partner. And so raising a family in that context, and these were how the role of men versus women, the roles of men versus women were embodied in that context. But I don't know, I was very keen. I'm an avid people watcher. I do well learning from other people's lessons, so I don't have to make choices or take action that will produce the kind of outcome that I don't want. So I was very observant and would adjust my life and my expectation to avoid perceived negative experiences. And so coming from that context, in my youth, I was very sure that any relationship I was a part of, I was gonna be Miss Strong and Independent, depend upon no man. And these are things that sort of, were reinforced by my grandmother, even in terms of around money and economics. You must always have your own money. Um, do not disclose all of what you own. Do not disclose all you move to your partner. And so, in a way, it was almost framing like, yes, you're in a relationship with this person, but always have your exit strategy. Um, but the funny story I want to tell is that the way that programming sort of influence how you interact with the person that you choose to share a relationship with means that it's going to take time and very good communication to unpack some of the feelings behind how you interact with each other, what you accept from each other, etc. And I remember when my partner, when we were dating, he would share his aspirations for what our future family arrangement would look like. And for a very long time, all he could see was the two of us. But I had a lot of walls up when he shared some of his ideas. So, for example, he used to talk about seeing me as this, um, you know, wonderful wife who loved to host parties and have friends over. And I mean, alarm bells were going off in my head like, no, this man is putting me squarely in the, nurturing role as opposed to the strong, independent woman who's going to be too busy with work to be hosting parties and friends and these wonderful things. Well, fast forward many years later, after working through a number of walls and blockades to understanding why I was so strong minded against stepping into what I thought were socialized feminine roles without any prompting from him. And that's the thing, when you are in a relationship for a long time and you make adaptations around the personalities and expectations of each other, while working through the issues and identities and assumptions that you carried with you into the relationship, um, my partner, there's some things where he just let me be. He never forced the issue about, wanting to bring friends over and, so I need to make up the table or prepare meals to have his friends over because I clearly expressed that I had no interest in that in our youth. But then as I got older, guess what I discovered, people? I discovered that I absolutely love planning and hosting events to have friends and family come over and have games night or go out and hang out and just have, let your hair down, chatting and laughing about, the latest story, current affairs, whatever. And I think part of why this stands out in my mind is that my partner never tried to make me into that person. When I put up resistance to the thought, he gave me room, he allowed me to be the person I thought I wanted to be. And somehow it can be a joke now that in working through, again, all those emotional and psychological structures of defining and determining who I am. Take the scenic route to find out that I am truly a person who loves doing these things, but my observation of relationships growing up when I was young like that. No, I'm not gonna be locked into that role and space. And it's not a thing where no, I'm even locked into that role and space because my partner didn't put me there. I just evolved to recognize that this is something I appreciate and enjoy, particularly with chosen family that I care about. And so that's the story tonight in terms of how, as we seek to coexist with other people, and it doesn't necessarily have to be intimate partners, the differences will come, the conflict will come, but having that space to understand the root of the conflict as opposed to making it about the person you're in conflict with, it takes time. It takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of self awareness. And it takes that level of consciousness where you just take a step back to try to make sense of how you are evolving and changing. So, who you are today can be very different from who you're going to be next month or 2 years from now. And so it's very important that we have people around us that allows us to step into these new versions of ourselves without putting that noose around your neck like, hey, you said you weren't somebody who wanted to host parties, etc., etc., but allowing that space for us to learn about ourselves and evolve into versions of ourselves that allow us to have the kind of fulfilling life that we all crave and deserve. So that's the story for today. Please feel free to share in the comments your thoughts. Were there any views that you held at some point in your life that you felt like, listen, this is a firm rule about how I'm going to live my life? And then as life and experiences and shifts happen, you recognize that in order to be truly comfortable in your skin and enjoy life, you had to modify and shift a little bit. Yeah, so if you have any of those experiences, I'd love to hear about it.